work as an organization consultant, working in areas of change and transformation and also leadership and learning. This morning we're going to talk about a book called Switch, authored by two brothers, Chip and Dan Heath. The book goes about, if we know change is difficult, as leaders, how do we then facilitate change and how do we influence people? It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I'm also a bit surprised that we don't see some more green. At least I've got my green here. It was a struggle this morning between the emotional mind and the rational mind whether I should wear my jersey or not, but in the end the rational mind came out the strongest there. Just in my analysis and trying to understand and put some credibility to this book, I actually went to go and do some research on the authors, on Chip and Dan, Harry and Kerry. So, I mean, there you can see at least they work at reputable institutions, Duke and at Stanford. So, at least it gives some credibility to the book as well. Just to give some context, that they talk about it in the introductory chapter, but also some background that I brought to the experience, and that helped me appreciate the book so much more. The first thing is really in terms of the impact that sustainability and organization resilience has on our current reality. And most importantly, the thing that, you know, we're running out of time. We're already starting to use next year's resources. So we can't really afford to be complacent. Change is something that we have to do. Resilience is not an option anymore, it's something that we have to do. So that is sort of the one context. The other one is also around behavior economics. And the other one is around change management. And the typical model that we use in change is the John Kotter model. This one that I have up here. And the John Kotter model is, and the Heath brothers also refer to John Kotter as part of the research that they did. So the John Kotter model really talks about the certain steps that you have to follow. He talks about the 8 steps. And in essence, the first one really is about you have to create some kind of an urgency in the environmental where you want to create the change. And it's about creating a vision, it's about getting the buy-in, but it's very much sort of a step-by-step approach. And I think from my own personal experience in working with change, that's one of the things that I battled with. You know, if you try and influence change in an organization, it is not always necessarily a step-by-step approach. There's certain things that you have to do in order to achieve some other things, but sometimes it is a case of sort of taking 2 steps forward in order to take a couple of steps backwards, and the other way around. So the Kotter model, although it's very popular, I sort of battled with it within a practical context. Behavioral economics, as I referred to earlier, the Dan Ariely stuff, and then in particular the one that I really found to have an impact on this book is this quote by Kahneman and Tversky. Where it talks about in human decision-making, losses loom greater than gains. Our fears carry more weight than our desires. And it's very much about how the brain is designed. So some of the influences, just to sort of recap, certainly the role that traditional change management theories play on how we work with change, the role of sustainability and organization resilience, the role of behavior economics, and I think most recently really has been the role of neuroscience. And I think some of the things that really sort of stuck in my mind about understanding how the human mind works and how that impacts on change, well, one of the things certainly was the explanation of how the brain is constructed, how the mind works. And the example that they use is the one with a fist, and I'm sure some of you might have seen it, where they talk about the fact that the human, if you think about the human mind, it's something like your hand, where if this is the spinal cord goes into the brain stem, and in the brain stem you have what we spoke about yesterday, the reticular activating system, sort of the system or the filter that sort of clears out all the junk. That is linked to the limbic system, or the emotional mind, or the intuitive mind, and then over that you have the cortex, the rational mind, the neocortex, the sort of the human operating system. So whenever there's a change in the environment, the brain says, well, you know, there's something new here now. This old connection doesn't work. So I have to form a new connection now. And there's resistance. So what happens in your brain is that it constantly scans the environment to look out for changes in the environment. And that the parts of the brain that work with this is the orbital cortex, and then the amygdala that sits in the limbic system. Now, maybe it's appropriate at this stage to, typically when they talk about the limbic system, they talk about the fight or flight or freeze. And what they've actually now done with their research is that they've found that there's more than just the Fs, the two Fs, the fight or the flight. And in their research, they actually found that there's about 4 or 5 Fs. Remember now, the limbic system is really where the brain started off, and the cortex developed later on. So if you just picture this this ancient being with just a limbic system, there's no cortex developed here yet, walking through this thick forest. Close your eyes and picture it, walking through this thick forest many thousands of years ago. And there's this thick cloud, this mist hanging over this forest. And in the distance, this ancient being sees another being walking towards him. Now remember, he hasn't got a rational mind yet. So he sees this other ancient being walking towards him. Now the first two Fs first thing is the first two Fs. So it's about this fight or flight. So as this other being comes a bit closer to him, he realizes, or it realizes, well, I don't have to fight, and I don't have to flee from this thing. And that's when the third F comes into it then, well, can I feed on this thing? So it goes on this change. If you go back to the Kahneman quote it's from fear into desire. So it's this fear thing first. So can I fight? Do I have to fight? Can I have to flee from it? Then the next one is can I feed on this thing? And as this thing comes closer, it realizes, well, I can't feed on it. And then as it comes even closer, then the fourth F comes into play, and that's where the desire thing comes into. So it's about can I mate with it? And you can make up in your own mind what the fourth F stands for. But can I mate with it then? So some of the things, as I mentioned there, it's there to make our lives easier. The role that the amygdala plays in the 4 Fs. The fact that our fears carry much more weight than our desires, that these two take brain resources away from the rational mind, and our working memory tires quite easily. It can only deal with 7 issues plus minus 2 at any given time. And that essentially we resist change. And alluded to the fact earlier that she's not comfortable with change. If we're all really honest with ourselves, none of us are really comfortable with change. That's just the way our brains are geared. So what the Heath brothers in particular talk about, they talk about the 3 surprises when thinking about the brain. They actually list a whole lot more, but essentially it's about the three. The first one is the fact that there's this constant struggle between the elephant and the rider. They refer to the rational mind as the rider and the emotional mind as the elephant. Also the fact that elephant is much stronger than the rider. The third one is that the rider is obviously much brighter than what the elephant is, but the fact remains that the rider tires very, very easily. So if there's too much information in the system, the rider gets confused. And it's not just a male thing, it's, all of us get confused with this thing. Another one is also what often looks like laziness or indecision is in fact actually just mental exhaustion. And then the last one, what looks like a people problem is often a situation problem. So that's the background to it. And from there then they then go into how do you then make the switch? Having this understanding about how it works, how do you then create the switch? What they say is that there's essentially you have to deal with those 3 issues. You have to deal with the rider, in other words the rational mind. You have to deal with the emotional mind, the elephant, and you have to deal with the situation. They refer to it as the path. So in order for change to happen, in order for us to influence change, you have to address those things. So the first thing they talk about in terms of directing the rider is they talk about you have to find the bright spots. And again, under that, he gives you some skills and techniques that one can use. He talks about asking the exception questions. So and trying to help people identify the bright spots. It's asking them, so when was this not a problem? So if you do battle with your finances, when did you not have a problem with your finances? And then asking those questions, you identify the bright spots. The second skill under this directing the rider is pointing to the destination. What he talks about, however, with pointing to the destination is that you have to make the link again with the rational with the rational mind and the emotional mind. So if you have this destination, it needs to be specific enough so that the rational mind can relate to it, but it also needs to link at a feeling and an emotional level. And the other one then is about scripting the critical moves. It's fine to know, where you have to go, but you need to help people get on this journey. You need to help people find out what is this first critical step. So scripting the critical moves, make it nice, practical, and help people with those first steps. Then going into the motivating the elephant, the first one that I talk about, and it's fairly obvious, is that you have to find the feeling. So it's no use that the emotional mind just doesn't connect with rational issues. The second one they talk about is shrinking the change, and it goes back to the example I had earlier. That sometimes it just feels so overwhelming. So shrink the change, make it small, make it manageable, try and get it so that people can really buy into it. If it's too big, like these targets in the financial services industry, it is just too big. People disconnect from it. And the last one is about growing your people. It's really just trying to create that mindset with people of how important is it to grow. So that's the second one, motivating the elephant. The third one then is how do you shape the path? And the skills that he then, or they suggest, is firstly is tweaking the environment. They talk about action triggers to try and get some action triggers that can help you tweak the environment. And in that process, it's about building habits, and it goes to the point that I made earlier, that essentially the brain is about making those connections. So if you want to try and shape the path, it's about trying to get people to form new habits. So really in summary then, it is about what is it that the rational mind needs, the rider needs. It's about what is it that the elephant needs, the emotional mind. What are some of those skills and techniques, keeping in mind the things that we have there, that the elephant, the rider tires easily, he battles to deal with a whole lot, he goes into analysis paralysis. So it's about finding those things that can keep him or the rider focused, don't expose him to too many things. The elephant, what is it that you can do to connect to that feeling? What is it that you can get him to really get psyched up, to get stoked up? And then what is it that you can do to shape the path? And those are really the three things that they talk about. Yeah, so building the habits, and then rally the herd is the last one. So maybe just in closing then from my side, two quotes from Peter and Peter. First one is that if you do want to influence change in an organization, it really starts with you as an individual. And the second one, also by the other Peter, is Peter Drucker, where he says that we now accept the fact that learning is a lifelong process of keeping abreast of change. You really can't separate learning and change. So if you want to survive and work in this world of sustainability and resilience, then it is about staying ahead of that change curve. So it's a lifelong process, keeping abreast of change, and the most pressing task is to teach people how to think and how to learn. And that really is the book in short.